Wee! Welcome to another episode of Toucan Reviews. I'm Logan Miller, aka Toucan LDM, and I'm joined once again by KP and AniMat of Electric Dragon 505. Subscribe to his channel in the description. Well, there goes my clever title for this series.
Technically, you can't just say Toucan. I'm just like the new addition here, so I'm pretty much like Knuckles, so you can't say this is a Toucan review and AniMat.
I approve. For this review, we'll be going over something that's not related to Disney. Instead, let's leave the castle and head on over to a mountain to discuss a movie based on the very popular video game character, Sonic the Hedgehog. In regards to our thoughts on Sonic as a franchise, what's interesting for me is that while I don't consider myself a huge Sonic fan, I do find myself very invested regarding certain products that Hedgehog has provided, whether it be video games, merchandise, the Macy's Thanksgiving balloon, the ice cream bar, you name it. Who would have thought Blue Mickey Mouse would have quite a lot of interesting background? I thank Pat Matt for that. As for the games, the most I played growing up were the original and Sonic Heroes. I was more of a Nintendo kid growing up and didn't really get into Sonic as much. Still, I think he's really cool.
So before I go and fully get into my thoughts on Sonic and all that stuff, I just would like to go and clarify that a lot of the things that I'm going to say is pretty much repeating what I've already stated in my own review of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. So if you guys would like to know a little bit more about my thoughts on the film, then you can go and check it out right there. But anyways, back onto Sonic over here. I would say that I am more of a casual fan of Sonic. Not like a super fan, but you know, just a regular fan that has enjoyed Sonic from time to time. I remember as a kid, Sonic was prominently there in my life where I used to watch some of the shows like Sonic X and Sonic Underground. And on top of that, I did play some of the games, like some of the classic games on the Sega Genesis when I would go and visit some of my family members. But other than that though, like now that I am older and stuff, it is rare if I would ever play a game of Sonic or anything like that. At the most, I have played Sonic Mania, but he's definitely not among my favorite games.
My experience with Sonic is pretty limited. I know about the memes, and I played one of the GameCube games back in the day.
Going into this film, it doesn't really surprise me how generic this looks just by the first trailer that left me saying, eh. Quite frankly, Sonic's original look was the least of my problems. It's no shock that people are comparing this to films like The Smurfs, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and many more. It has that feel of we've already been in this situation before, but now we're doing it with a video game icon. I wouldn't go as far as despising it, I'm just not amused. But hey, I've got nothing else going on Valentine's Day, so I might as well go see it.
I was just a little indifferent, like I didn't necessarily care all that much. I know the internet was like completely freaking out about it, especially with all the Sonic fans there, but for me, since I already established I'm just a casual fan of Sonic, it was more like, eh. It didn't necessarily leave me with a good impression of how the movie is going to be, especially when it kind of presents itself as a little bit as this typical buddy movie, and then you got the addition of Jim Carrey, which even at that could be a little bit iffy. Like from the trailers, I wasn't sure if he was actually going to be funny or if he was going to be annoying.
As a casual, I didn't really know what to expect. I expected kind of Alvin and the Chipmunks levels as far as quality with this. I thought Jim Carrey being cast was just kind of a cash grab on Jim Carrey, and even Jim Carrey's gotta eat, so I had a pretty baseline, kind of expectations going in, I guess.
In short, we all think it's going to be
Eh.
Could our opinions change after seeing the film? Well, let's see. Truth be told, I was generally surprised by the Sonic movie. Granted, it's nowhere near a masterpiece, and it has as many cliches when it comes to these types of movies, but I honestly was very invested by what's going on with the story. Bravo, Sonic. Bravo.
I think that's everyone's takeaway with this movie is everything is just genuinely surprising. I was surprised that they actually developed the characters like at all, and everything kind of felt into place. I was really surprised that they spent a lot of time doing some good characterization for Jim Carrey's character, for instance, and I think they had a really good attitude as far as putting memes in there, quote unquote, but in a way that it works narratively, but if you don't know the meme, it doesn't affect if you don't get the joke or not.
Everyone knows her father's a lunatic. He was in here tonight, raving.
Speaking of developing the characters, what I personally love about this film is the way they portray Sonic here. He's been put on Earth as a way to escape danger from his home planet and has to live there alone for 10 years just to be protected from those wanting to use his power of speed. I truly do feel sorry for the guy because, as someone who also faces loneliness on occasions, I know that feeling of being depressed when you're not socially interacting with anybody. I find that to be a nice change of pace for a character that's known to be in your face a lot, though he does have that personality still. I think filmmakers did a really great job of the way they handled him here.
I think among all the performances, I gotta say Jim Carrey really is the one that stood out among the rest, and probably in the best way. I would even argue and say that Jim Carrey even stands out, like is probably even more memorable in that film than Sonic the Hedgehog himself. Because with Jim Carrey, it's almost as if for many years, he had his comedic side completely bottled up, because we know that in recent years, Jim Carrey tried to be a little bit more serious as an actor with all these dramatic and thriller roles and stuff like that. But from there, with this movie, he decided to unleash it. And not only is his comedic performance over the top, like he goes way beyond what he has done with like Liar Liar and Yes Man. He already goes on par with what he has done with stuff like Ace Ventura and The Mask. It definitely is absolutely hilarious. Like, all the best jokes do come from him and his crazy and wacky antics. He really is a true show stealer there.
On the same level as both of you guys, I was genuinely surprised with how much care they put into it. And on hindsight, I realized that the model design was not just a PR move to like, sorry, we're bad. It was more from a level of, we want this to be a franchise, and I don't think that's spoiling anything because it's very obvious that it wants to be a franchise. But yeah, it is essentially a buddy comedy where two unlikely buddies go on a road trip, but it's a way that it's pretty charming compared to what we're used to in that genre.
In terms of like nitpicks or flaws or anything like that, I would say that at worst, it really is just a generic movie. I couldn't necessarily think of anything that is cringy or terrible about the feature that kind of irks me the wrong way. Because at worst, it really is just your typical supernatural buddy flick. James Marsden is virtually playing the same role like he did in Hop. When you look into the comedy and some of the plot points outside of Jim Carrey, of course, there's a lot of stuff that is hit and miss. Like, a lot of jokes are pretty much duds. Again, nothing too cringy, but it's just like, eh. But I will give it that there are some funny moments as well.
At most, when it comes to cringy moments, you do get Sonic doing the floss choice and making some fart jokes, because we all know how much that hedgehog loves his chili dogs.
Hey, chili dogs, yeah, gotta go fast.
I invited too many boys to this episode. My only general nitpicks is I don't think the government's role as far as what they wanted to do with Sonic was defined very well. They just said animal testing, and I was surprised there was never a dialogue as far as like, you could help people if you do this, Sonic, and it was just very black and white. No, the government is bad. We need to keep you away from the government. But yeah, that's just my slight nitpick in general. So, any other thoughts, gentlemen?
Not much else to say, really. Overall, this is a movie that I personally think is a don't judge a book by its cover scenario. While it does have its predictable moments, I had fun watching Sonic the Hedgehog. It's definitely one of the more superior video game based films out there. Plus, I think it's better than Detective Pikachu. Haters gonna hate, bro! Haters gonna hate!
I really think that this does define as a full-on popcorn movie, because at the very least, it manages to succeed what it wants to do, and that is bring Sonic the Hedgehog into a movie. Like, it's not necessarily trying to aim for anything big. It's not trying to be this major cinematic masterpiece or whatever. It's not trying to be amazing. It's just trying to take Sonic the Hedgehog and put it in a movie. Simple as that.
This movie, for me, has a lot more heart than what I expected it to have. It has a lot more structure as far as character development, and it's a fun, light story that I think will surprise some people. It's not the most amazing thing that's ever been made, but comparing it to some of the other live-action cartoon movies, then it definitely has a lot going for it as far as a comparison to that.
Well, that should do it for this episode. Special thanks to both KP and AniMat for joining me for this review. Make sure to follow, subscribe, etc. to each of us in the description below. Let us know your thoughts on the film below. Until then, this is Logan Miller saying, Snooping as you
Look out in his storm.